Honestly, I don't think this is going to work. Hi everyone, it's Tash and welcome to another recipe video. And today I'm going to attempt to make a 4-ingredient matcha souffle cheesecake. Now you may already know if you've been on the YouTube baker sphere for a while that the original creator of the 3-ingredient souffle cheesecake was the lovely Ochikeron. Here is her original YouTube video, I'll also link it down below in the description. And it was this amazing idea, which is basically white chocolate, cream cheese and whipped up eggs to create a 3-ingredient, really fluffy like cheesecake. I've made a couple of more traditional cotton cheesecakes myself in the past. Those were a little bit more complicated, they were more traditional in that they had the flour in them, the corn flour. A few more steps to it, here's a picture of the old one I made. I'll also link the recipe that I created on my blog tashcakes.com there too in the description. But actually I'm planning on updating that recipe soon too, so watch this space. In the meantime, I've always wanted to try out Ochikeron's super simple cheesecake, but I've always had the sneaking suspicion that I'd come across one particular problem when I make it, and that is English cream cheese. If, like Ochikeron, you live in Japan or even in the USA, you will probably have access to block cream cheese. And that stuff is wonderfully thick, it has very little water in it, so it can really hold its shape in recipes. It's fantastic for frosting too. In the UK, however, we only have cream cheese in a tub. And throughout my years of baking and watching loads of videos to compare the consistency, UK cream cheese is definitely more watery. I always use full-fat Philadelphia brand cream cheese here in the UK. I've tried lots of others. I love me a good supermarket brand. I usually use them for anything because they're cheap and they're usually the same. However, supermarket brand cream cheese is always even more watery, so these days I've been using Philadelphia and it's been okay. However, in the past couple of years or so, I found that Philadelphia too in the UK is becoming watery, and that leads to very thin, difficult to pipe cream cheese frosting. And of course, souffle recipes like this are also more difficult too, because you have more water, then your batter will be thinner, and it won't want to rise as much. I have a sneaking suspicion it's to do with the cost of living crisis. We also have something called shrinkflation here, which is when products get smaller or they add cheaper ingredients to it, but the price stays the same or in fact goes higher. In fact, both tend to happen here at the moment. The product gets smaller, less quality, and the price goes up at the same time, which saves the companies on their margins. And of course, as usual, the consumer gets the short end of the stick. So how is this a problem for me making this cheesecake? Like I said, with more water in the cream cheese, it's going to thin down the batter a lot, and that is definitely going to have a bad effect on the end baked result. And I cannot for the life of me source block cream cheese here in the UK, and if I did, it would probably be expensive because of import fees, so we're just sticking with what we have today. But also, I can't leave well enough alone, and I also added an extra ingredient to this, which is matcha, hence 4-ingredient souffle cheesecake. It's always a bit of an unknown when you add an extra ingredient to a recipe because baking is chemistry, you need really exact quantities. I'm hoping that the matcha will actually offset the liquid quantity in the cheesecake and absorb that extra water a bit from the UK cream cheese. I doubt it because I don't think there will be enough matcha to absorb the cream cheese, and I don't want to use too much because matcha is expensive. And to top things off, the third difficulty I'm going to have is I don't have the right size pan. Ochikeron's original recipe calls for a 6-inch pan, but I only have a 7-inch, which is of course slightly bigger, which means that the cake is going to be a bit shorter, but that's less of an issue. Honestly, I don't think this is going to work. I hope it does though, because like I said, matcha is expensive and I don't want to waste it. Whatever happens though, I do suspect we will have a tasty end result. So having said all that, let's go to the kitchen and see how it goes. First, we're going to preheat our oven to 170 degrees C. I have also prepared a 7-inch springform pan. Ochikeron says to use a 6-inch, but I only have a 7-inch, so this will do. What I've done is I've oiled it on the inside, lined it on the outside and the bottom, and then oiled it again, so that hopefully when the cake is baking and then it cools down, it puffs up and it'll sink down and slide down and not have any cracks. I've also taken an extra measure to line the outside of my pan with some foil so that the water that we're going to put in the hot water bath doesn't leak into the tin, because I don't trust this tin. But it's up to you. If you have a really good tin, then you don't need to do that, but just in case. I'm also going to separate 3 eggs. I'm going to put the whites in the big bowl. And we're going to come back to these in a bit. Now here I have a pan of barely simmering water, and on top I'm going to melt 120 grams of white chocolate, and I'm making sure that the bottom of the bowl doesn't touch the hot water. But that's not all, I'm also going to add about a tablespoonful of matcha. It's 3 teaspoonfuls, which is about a tablespoonful. And we're going to stir this as we go. Once this is all melted and well combined, we're going to take this off the heat. Before it cools down too much, we're going to melt in 120 grams of full fat cream cheese. And once that's all smooth, we're going to add in the egg yolks too. Excellent, now let's deal with our egg whites. We've got our egg whites over here, and we're just going to whisk these up until they form stiff peaks like a meringue. These have formed our stiff peaks, and you know that it's ready when you tip the bowl around and the egg whites stay put. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start to incorporate these two together. So I'm going to add about a third, maybe a little bit less than a third, of the egg white mixture into our matcha mixture. Now I'm just going to roughly incorporate this in, still being a bit careful not to knock out too many air bubbles, but at this stage this is just to loosen up the mixture. And now we're going to add in the rest of the egg white. Now we're going to fold gently so we don't squash out the air bubbles, using a cutting and folding motion. And it's here where I start to realise the batter is getting really watery, and trust me, it's not my technique, I've done this so many times, but I ended up having to transfer to my balloon whisk because it was too watery for the last few bits of egg white to fold in, so I folded it in with my balloon whisk, which is what I sometimes do. That's about done. Now let's pour this into our tin. Pour this straight in. At this point I knew the batter was too runny, but it was still kind of foamy, so I decided to persevere and see what happened. And I'm also going to half fill the tray outside with hot water. This is just off the boil. I'm going to make it so that it comes around half the height of our cheesecake. Now I'm going to pop this in the oven for 15 minutes, and after 15 minutes turn it down to 160 degrees. Bake that for another 15 minutes, then I'm going to turn the oven off and then let that cook in the hot oven that's off for another 15 minutes, so 45 minutes altogether. And here it is, our matcha souffle cake. Right now, looking a bit small, but that's obviously because we used a slightly bigger tin. That's okay, she's just a very short queen. Now, we are going to let this cool down completely in the water bath, and hopefully that will help it cool down, not to deflate too much. This will take a couple of hours to cool down, so see you then. Our cake is completely cooled now, so let's attempt to plate her up. Release her from the tin, and we have quite a lot of sinkage there. Let's slice her up then. Well, she's looking kind of deflated. She's got a bit of a skirt on her, which is pretty, but not what we wanted. Let's slice her up and see inside. Sheets attached here, and I didn't have much hope at this point, but I did notice as I was slicing it, it did feel very airy, and sure enough, when I pulled out the slice, lots of tiny little air bubbles. So, this might be worth it after all. Let's see. Gotta put it on a nice pretty plate first. Here's the end result just before I do the slow-mo. She's a bit compact as you see, but you can see some bubbles in there, so let's go ahead and do the slow-mo. I've got to admit, that cut very well. It sounded really bubbly and light. Let's taste it. They say the proof is in the pudding, in which case, cheers. Oh wow, I was not expecting that. It's really good. I was 100% expecting to have to post a fail video, But that is so light and airy, and it's so delicious too. It's just the right amount of sweetness. We haven't added any extra sugar, remember, because all that sweetness came from the white chocolate, and it's very matchy. And most importantly of all, it is very airy and bubbly. She just sank a bit. Listen to how airy this is when I cut it. Whoa, it's almost like a mousse. I am very pleasantly shocked. So here's proof that you can make this kind of cheesecake with UK cream cheese, even though it's a bit watery. The batter will just be a bit runnier and it will sink a bit more. But that is legitimately good cheesecake. And of course, many thanks to Ochikeron for actually coming up with this recipe in the first place. Hopefully one day the UK will get its hands on some block cream cheese and then we'll be able to make a proper go of this. In the meantime, this will do. And of course I'll post the more complicated in-depth cotton cheesecake recipe soon. Maybe not next week, we'll have something a bit different next week, but soon. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed today's recipe video and I hope you'll join me next Wednesday for my next one. Get the full written recipe on my blog tashcakes.com, follow me on Instagram on tashcakes.tastes, and find me on TikTok too, on tashcakes there too, but my handle is food in slow motion. I honestly don't know how I did that, I signed up a long time ago when I didn't quite know how TikTok worked. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you'd like to see more, give this video a like if you'd like to help other people find it, comment down below if you'd like me to make anything in particular, and I will see you guys next time. Be good, be nice, and have a good week. And stay positive, because good things happen when you least expect them. I'm sorry I doubted you, Flat Cheesecake.